Welcome to episode 131 of the Eavesdrop podcast, award-winning Eavesdrop podcast. I cannot tell you how many, when does this end? At what point am I like, you know what? Like, we've had so many repetitions on guests. We have a man, Walshy. I'm gonna read some stats before I get started. Before I start, massaging the ego, right? I'm gonna go through with this right here. You were called the first superstar of console esports. Agreed. Has the record for most consecutive MLG tournaments. You won 9 in a row, right? Has 23 MLG tournament wins. Called Captain Clutch. Signed one of MLG's first $250,000 management contracts. Signed $1 million contract with Dr. Pepper. First ever Red Bull sponsored esports athlete. Started Team FFA to dethrone the Ogre Twins. Did you succeed in that?
Yes.
You succeeded in that. Joined the Ogre Twins for Final Boss. One of the first people to adopt the BR shot. One of the first people to play Claw. Started his own clothing line. I mean, all of this is happening, right? So I'm reading this. Like, I remember very, very clearly sitting in my townhouse in Schaumburg, Illinois, the first house that I ever bought. My daughter was, I literally had just started doing like this gaming thing. My daughter was just born. And I remember feeding her spaghetti in my kitchen or in my dining room, looking at our TV in the living room and seeing you there as I'm starting out. So, one, thank you for that, because it showed me that there's something more to what I was doing, which was just uploading, video game footage on the internet. The other thing is, like, it sort of gave me an imagination or a vision that I too could do something like that if I applied myself. When I saw, and I don't know if you remember this, what documentary or what show was it on? Was it on USA on TV?
Yeah. So one small correction there. Everything that you said there so far was correct. The Dr. Pepper thing, incorrect. Didn't sign a big deal, Dr. Pepper. But regardless, it was on USA Network. It was like 6 or 7 1-hour episodes on USA Saturday mornings, which got so many people into gaming. They were like, I was big into Halo, but then I started seeing it on TV and, just kind of really brought a lot of legitimacy that gaming was craving.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Maddie, it was T Squared that did the Dr. Pepper thing, right?
T Squared had a Dr. Pepper deal. Yep. Wikipedia is wrong for sure. Yeah, I think there's been stuff on there, and then I don't know.
How about you double verify from here on out, man? I'm kidding. So it was on USA. I'm going to tell you what I remember, and then we can get started on the conversation, just so you can understand the impact that you had in my life, like literally for real. Like I said, I was trying to make something happen. I was actually in between jobs at the time when I was creating YouTube videos and taking care of my daughter, while Judith, my wife, was working. And it was right after I jumped feet first into doing the optic thing, on a consistent basis. And at the time, we had already been making YouTube videos with no way of making money, right? So we were just doing it for the passion of it, word of mouth, and it worked, right? Like, it was a passion thing, as gaming should be. But when I saw that there was like tournaments for Halo, and I'm playing Call of Duty, I'm like, that's gonna happen in Call of Duty 100%. And then as I'm watching and I see the success that you were having in this like mini documentary or part of the show that they do, how they do those little mini documentaries in between the shows, like they showed you that you had bought a house off of gaming, you had created Canetto, and you got the tattoo, right? You don't have to, it's there, boom, right there. And I started to think, I'm like, that is so genius, right? That this dude is exploring. And by then I had already had the thought that I was going to be Zerg Griss's, Zerg Griss, the montage Call of Duty maker at the time. Still going strong, but like at the time I already wanted to be that dude's manager. And I had this thought, I'm like, man, 50,000 subscribers this dude has on YouTube, Grizz. And I'm like, that's 50,000 people. If I go to Game Informer, if I go to all these like places, like they're gonna want to show this guy. And at the time, you got to think about the fact where YouTube was, right? It was in its early stages. 50,000 people were meaningful 50,000 people. It hadn't gotten to the point to where there are dead subs because YouTube hasn't been around for so long, because at that point it was just beginning. So I thought to myself, this is what I want to do. And I would write it on my little Rolodex calendar that I had on my desk, and I would daydream about like all the things that we could do. The Z Hour being a 1 hour a 1 hour block where he would play live, right? And at the time, like, live wasn't a thing, and I was just like already thinking about these things, and it all came because of watching what you had done, right? So let's get started. And I just wanted to say thank you and shake your hand, right? You're a legend, brother, and I am excited to do this podcast. You're one of the first people that I've ever wanted to interview, one of the first people that I ever wanted to meet. Seeing the HECZ quarters was based off of a Red Bull ad that you had done in your living room, where the floors were cement, sleek, and it was just you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yep,
you know
yep. I remember dude. Like, so first off, I appreciate the premium gas. Like, it's
not gas, it's facts.
It's you know, it's special, like hearing, you know, all like the kind words, like seeing like sort of influence or impact that I have had in the past from like, especially like such you know, such industry groundbreakers like yourself, like Nade Shot. Like, even when I was walking by in the venue yesterday, like Formal's like, dude, you're a legend. It's just like, it means a lot coming from you know, like such big industry figureheads.
Thank you, man. Well, you paved the way for a lot of us, man. I mean that. Obviously, like Stro, yeah, that one, Matt, that's the one. So that, again, like the influence that you had on me, and this little, you know, fact sheet is you were the first, to me at least. I'm sure that there were video game players out there that were like famous in their respective esports, but to me, you were the one that was like that sort of showed me a possibility, right? So, you know, first superstar for sure. And if I go down the superstars that I consider superstars in my life on my side of esports that I noticed, it was you being number one. T Squared obviously made a splash, but you were the one. And then after you, I would say it was Hutch, who became like one of the first superstars in Call of Duty. After that, Nanners, then Nate Shot, then obviously like the rest of all of us. So yeah. That's all I have to say from a facts perspective. When people thank me for, you know, complimenting them on what they've achieved, I often hear a thanks back, and I'm like, man, why are they thanking for, like, you know, if you knock this bottle down, and I say you knocked that bottle down, you want to thank me. It was a statement, it's a fact. You did that thing. So thank you, truly. So
I appreciate that.
Let's start. Who, for those of you who don't know, obviously David Walsh. Who are you today?
Who am I today? I now work behind the scenes over at Red Bull doing gaming partnerships over there. I am enjoying a pretty incredible life. Like, I got engaged at the end of last year. Thank you. Just live at home with my 2 cats over in Los Angeles, and you know, still got that competitive energy, obviously, like obviously playing Halo Infinite from time to time, but you know, that's also spawned off into a couple other things as well. Like, I play like this arcade game called Killer Queen Arcade. I'm obsessed with it. Killer Queen Arcade. I'll have to show you later. I got a set up in my garage. So next time you're in LA, you'll come over. Okay. I'll show you the game. And then lately, I've also been playing this like mini version of tennis called pickleball. You ever heard of that?
No, but I've heard of pickleball.
Yep. So I've been playing some pickleball these last. Oh, snap. All right. We might have to challenge. I actually, no joke, even brought my paddle here to go play like on like Monday morning when I wake up to get some exercise.
Yeah, so, you know, funny enough, last time I played pickleball was that when I won that championship. I retired at the height of my career, and since then I haven't looked back.
Just gotta say, it's an honor being here with the pickleball champion. Dude. I'm striving to get there in pickleball. You know, would love to learn a thing or two.
I mean, I don't know if I remember anything to teach, so we'll figure that out. All right, so you're now also commentating, right? You're here for Halo, still very passionate about your favorite game ever, which is, I'm assuming, Halo?
Yeah, I mean, Halo is without a doubt been my favorite franchise over the last 20 years. I mean, it's changed my life in numerous ways. With all the ups, it also has its downs. You know, even if I'm not as vocal online, I am very critical of the series where I wish it had certain things involved. You know, I do feel like Halo Infinite is slightly incomplete from where it should be, especially with how competitive the game environment is now. But even with that all aside, I come out to one of these events and I see like a high level Halo match, and like those foundational, like fundamental elements are still there. There's just something still so special about combat in Halo.
I love that. I too have a passion for a video game. It's called Call of Duty. And I am very critical, just like you. And at times, it gets misunderstood as me down talking a game that I love, when in reality, what I'm trying to do is raise light in case somebody hasn't seen the things that are going wrong, so that we can rectify. And it's not a matter of the I told you so. It's not a matter of like you should have done this sooner. It's a matter of like get it there so that this can thrive forever and truly start the building blocks of what will one day be the NFL, what will one day be the NBA, what will one day be NHL, MLB, you name it. So for me, that is the end goal, right? That is the end goal. And what's beautiful about this is that at one point, if you were to have been able to have cameras and iPhones and all that in the very, very early ages of football, you would have had these same interviews, right? I'm sure there's newspapers and interviews and books out there, but video form of a young Jerry Jones at length would have been amazing to watch. And I'm not saying obviously that I'm Jerry Jones. I'm not, obviously, but I hope to be one day for sure.
No, I mean you're correct in the direction this is heading. Like even in our time that we've been involved with esports, like to see where it's at now, I didn't think it would be here at 2020 or 2022. With the explosion of like Fortnite, MOBAs, Counter-Strike, like resurgence, like all those games, like selling out stadiums and stuff. I was like, all right, we're going to be there at some point. I didn't think it was going to be like 6 or 10 years later. I thought it was going to be like, all right, it's going to be a gradual process, but it's gaming's grown exponentially. Yeah,
I mean the age of the internet has allowed for that. So let's go back to pre-YouTube, pre all of the fun stuff. You're 37 years old. Tell me about your childhood. Where did you grow up, and what was it like back in those days?
Yeah, grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I was always a massive gamer. Like as soon as we had like an Atari growing up, so playing a little bit of that. We got a Nintendo shortly after, and I was just always glued to it. Like just something about like me and video games connected, where I just always loved playing like all those single player games. I vividly remember I was not allowed to like play Nintendo until like a certain time in the morning. And so like I would like wake up, I would like sneak down in the basement, I would like turn the volume all the way down. I'd just play like a whole game of Contra until like the time was available. And then I would like go up to my parents and be like, 9 a.m. Can I go play Nintendo now? I'm like, yeah, you can go down. And I go back down and back on the sticks.
Yeah, but loud and drinking, sipping on your juice. All right, so obviously, what were your parents like back then? Right, like, too much video games? Were they like get out there and play some sports?
I mean, they definitely influenced me to play sports. They got me into like tennis and soccer and baseball, those things early on. My mom was a nurse. My dad worked at the post office. So they were great parents. Like they let me pursue my passions, but they also like kept me in check. Like they're like, all right, if you're at least fulfilling these base needs, like getting decent grades, working a job, like playing in sports and like, not flaking on stuff, like do whatever you want with your free time. And I was really passionate about gaming, so I would just play a lot of video games. So if we fast forward to like something like high school, I was pretty successful in like tennis and wrestling as far as school sports. Like,
what was high school back then for you?
I went to a school called Granville High School. Let's see, I graduated in 2003, and I mean, I could have probably gotten straight A's if I applied myself, but I got decent grades.
Yeah, everyone.
But high school for me was like, originally it was like Counter-Strike and Warcraft 3 were my games until I discovered Halo later on those years.
Around what years were those?
Let's see, like 1999, 2000 area would have been like Counter-Strike, and I forget exactly which year Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos came out, but I would guess that was like, around 2000, something like that. 99 or 2001, something like that. Either way, I was playing those games like early high school, and then when I found a Halo, like my brother showed me the game, played with him because he was in college at the time, so I went over to like his house and just played with a bunch of his roommates and was like, all right, this game's incredible. I just want to LAN it and play it more. And so started doing Halo LANs with all my high school friends.
How did you know about LANs? Like where did that come from?
I mean, I was already LANing back then, like playing. I even did like a Counter-Strike LAN or two back then. Funny enough, even like a PlayStation, like you could land original PlayStations. Like at one point, me and my friends like hooked up 2 PlayStations, played Command and Conquer. I forget the PlayStation version on PlayStation 1. So even doing that, so always like pretty network savvy at least.
Yeah. And like, at what point do you just say you discover Halo, but at what point do you discover yourself and your passion for it, where you were just like, was online a thing back then already, to where there was a ranking system? Like, what was that?
No, back then was just playing with my high school friends, and like I was definitely a step above and really good, but like, you know, I was also aware enough to be like, all right, that doesn't mean like I'm great, like I'm better than my local high school friends. And I'd been playing the game for a few months, and the game had been out for maybe a year and a half or something like that. And so one of my friends told me about this tournament. He's like, oh, like I went to this Halo forum and I saw this thing about a tournament called AGP, a now defunct league. And there was a tournament out in Nashville. I was like, let's go. I want to go.
Yeah.
And so we all went over spring break to just kind of test our skills. And so it was me and 3 of my high school friends. And then there was a free-for-all component and a 4v4 component. This event had, I want to say, 64 plus teams, which is like pretty good
Massive.
for a Halo. And
Yeah.
And so this is without without an online experience. There was a couple different programs you could use back then, like XBC, like Xbox Connect or GameSpy. But even being able to connect those online, which I didn't before this tournament, it was like not that great of an experience. Like you were playing on such delay that it was not even comparable to how the game should play. But yeah, went to that first tournament. Our team got like first rounded, like we got like, I don't know, like 33rd through something, whatever. Like, so we lost like first round to a decent team. And then in the free for all, I ended up taking like 5th through 8th. So, so like out of 256 people,
so he's like, I'm not the problem.
I was like, I got a few words for all of you here. You, Biggie, you need to be run the flag more. Junebug, you need to know.
Is that what those your teammates' names?
Yep. Those were like
the third one.
So we had Biggie, Junebug, and indoor pool.
That's a dope one, man. I love those. County Hippo, to me, it's always going to be like the dopest name in the world. Just like I don't even remember. I think he was just like a very good pub player, and his name would always pop up, County Hippo.
Dude, we all always had like those local like legends of our own, like whether they're like small, like, you know, online legends or like, you know, your own local scene where you're just like, all right, that person had that some sick moments, or like they're just like such a pleasure to be around or game with.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that gets, I think, lost nowadays. Like now everybody's like, I don't want to say any names because they're gonna think that I'm talking shit about their names, but they're not what they used to be. Like, you know, Walshy, obviously, you know, from your last name, but Lunchbox, what a fucking cool fucking name, right? Like, ooh, I'm a Lunchbox. That's me. I am Lunchbox. There's like a water bottle, Skittle Cake. Shout out to my man Skittle Cakes, who's competing today with one of the dopest names, Crashies. I love that name. Like, I just see Crashies as like a really dope name to draw, right? Because it ends on an S and this graffiti stuff. But
like the gamer tags are actually so important. And I remember I did this quote with we were doing the HCS top player announcements, and like I was told to talk on Snipe Down a bit, and I'll just repeat the same quote that I said on there. Like it was from this Murakami book. I want to say it was Kafka. It was either way, forget which Murakami book, but in short, there's this character in there. His name's Ushikawa, which stands for like Bull River, and everyone calls him Ushi. And he's like, you get called the bull growing up, you're gonna become the bull. So he's he's basically like this mafia kind of like side man or whatever. And like the quote is that a name expresses a thing that it stands for, but I think it's the other way around. That thing becomes more and more like its name. And so, like, I do think it's so important to have, like, that right moniker. Like, how do you want to be represented? What do you want to be when you go into gaming?
Yeah. I think what's beautiful about gaming, right, and how it's impacted traditional sports now is that never before in the history of competition has somebody come up with a moniker. I mean, graffiti, you can obviously, you know, point towards that, but that's actually like one of the things that attracted me to gaming, and it made the transition from me being this outdoor student to gaming, is the fact that everybody had a nom de plume, a moniker, a nickname, right? Because in graffiti, you're breaking the law, so you can't put Hector Rodriguez, right? Like, But in gaming, it was the same thing. It's like, oh, I wonder why people are being secretive. And obviously, at the time, it's like, well, it's the internet. People are going to scam you. People are going to steal your identity. And at the time, you probably could at the time because of there's no way to verify anything else. So there is a certain level of security that you had to always pay mind to. But yeah, I love the thing. So where I was going with that is that gaming has allowed an individual to gain a following big enough and create a brand off of themselves that traditional sports don't have right now. Like Jordan, arguably his last name has become iconic, but you don't often see like it would take so much for somebody to be able to sell a T-shirt that says "Run Our Test." You know what I mean? And I'm sure he does. Meta World Peace, that you can sell. 100%. But Run Our Test is just like, right? Like there's no.
You don't have that same individual brand. You don't. Yeah. There's obviously their jerseys and such, but it's separate from that. It's like they can't do their own full-on successful clothing lines that we've seen to the same level that we've seen with gamers and other people that built their brands in different ways.
Yeah, and now, especially now that there's like NBA players that sort of watch gaming because they grew up playing video games. Now you're starting to see this relationship that you wouldn't ever have seen ever anywhere else, right? Like if you go back to call it early 1980s, early 1990s, right? Internet doesn't exist. There's no social media. Like who were the mega influencers back then, and how did they do it, right? Like because nowadays your currency is your following, right? Like that means a lot to people. So it's just like if you ask people like, would you rather? I've done studies on this stuff. I haven't personally, but I've read studies.
I was about to be like, all right, let me hear these studies.
Yeah. No, I've read studies like on just the psychology of what we're currently living in, and it's like the biggest opportunity that any human has ever had to truly tilt the balance that has been the power for the longest, right? Like now you have the ability to become who the fuck you want to become. Because you have to now you have the tools to put in the work enough to do what you love to do, right? Carpenters, and I always say carpenters, I don't know why, but carpenters, maybe because I watch it, but carpenters never before have had the ability to become their own brand until now. Like to be a big brand in that genre or that labor of whatever, like it would have taken you having to be on HGTV or something else, where now you can be your own HGTV, and if you have a personality and you're creating good art, people are just going to follow because of that, and that's never been the case.
Yeah, that direct to consumer is unparalleled. Like before, you used to be at the mercy of either large distribution or corporations to be like, all right, well, how do I get my gear out there?
Yeah.
Or like, you're making amazing picnic tables. Like
you
somehow have to like not only be an incredible carpenter, you also have to somehow sign a deal with someone who's going to take a much larger cut to distribute those to whatever stores and whatnot. And so,
obviously Halo had its well, let's continue on with your story, and then we'll talk about Halo. So out of high school, did you go to college?
Kind of immediately. So yeah, in high school, like I said, I was fairly accomplished in sports. The two things I will highlight, like I do think being strong in sports, or at least having like some sort of sports or athletic background, is so beneficial in gaming.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's always something I want to promote when I get a chance. Like in high school, I was like a 2-time MVP for our tennis team. We were second in state for wrestling my senior year. And I do attribute a lot of that to gaming. Is like for our wrestling thing, like if you know, like maybe like football or wrestling culture, especially back then, is more of like kind of like this hazing / seniority / culture that was a bit more toxic. That was just more like built on like, all right, well, this is how it's always been done. And then like when I got up to be like a junior and senior in high school, I was like, all right, we're all friends and equals here. Like, we're gonna come to my house.
Yeah,
we're gonna play Halo.
Yeah.
However, if you're a freshman, don't touch my sniper rifle. I'm grabbing that on Blood Gulch.
Yep.
But in short, like we made this camaraderie instead of like this system of fear in our school. And like, wrestling's an individual sport, but you out there and like you're like, all right, I'm like out there wrestling for my family now, or like my friends, like versus like, oh man, I don't want to get yelled at by one of the seniors or by the coach for losing. And it really did. I do attribute it, and same with our coach. He attributed it to us having like all these Halo lands and kind of like building this tighter culture.
Yeah, as a person that grew up in the '90s, like this day and age, like at least back then, if you got bullied, if you got something, like you would go home and just go with your friends and just like sort of like talk it out. Now, like it follows you, right? Which is why you're seeing like all of these like social media, as good as it has been, that has its dark sides, right? Like it's
Absolutely.
It's not so. As you were telling me how you were like, yeah, you know, the second that I became a senior, we sort of wanted to change the culture of, you know, jocks and nerds and this and that. I was thinking, I'm like, yeah, but that also made people tough, right? Or the reason that they were doing this, like they thought that that's how you toughen people up, and you, in some weird way, they were like helping. Right, obviously, it never became.
Yeah.
Obviously,
No,
it was
I
the
think
wrong
there's-
way to think. Right, I'm not supporting that. If you're a bully, you are literally a fucking loser. Right, like that in high school, I would fucking, if I saw somebody getting picked on, I would try to fucking help, and I would like have this opportunity to like, you know what I mean? Like, how do I say it? Not. I don't even want to go into it because it's like fighting is never like a thing, but it sort of made me want to like fight these fucking people there because it just felt wrong to me. It always has felt wrong to me, right? And it is, obviously, as we talk about it. But so yeah, I'm glad that you were one of the people that, you know, sort of identified that was just like not the good way to, you know, go in your high school, at least, obviously, right?
Yep. Over in our high school, and like I said, we had very successful like sporting teams there at those times, and yeah, it was just like a really cool kind of shift that we got to see before our eyes.
Yeah.
We also had our bad moments with gaming and like wrestling. Like one of my old like high school friends, I saw him recently. He came over to like our housewarming party, and he was telling me, he's like, "Do you remember this tournament we went to?" I was like, "Not really." And he's like, "Dude, we all went out there. We were landing at your house till like 6 a.m. the night before. Then we go to this wrestling tournament, and we just get waxed. Like,
Because you're tired.
Yeah, because we're all tired. And then our coach was like, he's like, what the fuck is going on? What are you all doing? Like, you're out there looking flat. And like, you know, and it's just like, it was so funny because like, you know, it's like, all right, yeah, maybe we can't land till early in the morning.
Yeah,
like, you
yeah.
know, we're also high school kids at that point. Like, we're not as disciplined as we should be.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
play a fun game of Halo and someone says one more. We're like, yep, one more.
Yeah. And at that time, like, what was the setups? What did the setups look like?
It was at my parents' house, and so we had 4 TVs in different rooms, and so like there would be like one in my bedroom, one down the living room, one down over in like the den, and so like and one over in the basement, and so it's just like these wires running all across the house, and there'd be times where like one of the people would like run to my room and was like, which room is Biggie in? Like, and because he'd be like, he just got killed by him so many times, and I was like, I'm gonna like, you know, mess him a little bit, and so like just run over.
So it
to the
wasn't
room.
even in the same room.
Not
It was
even
like
the same room. Yeah, we were just all
and everyone
across.
different TVs.
Everyone, we had 4 TVs, so yep. 4
Different
people per
sizes,
TV.
and that's
Yep,
pretty
of course,
cool.
not a uniform setup.
Yeah. You played on yours, obviously, home court.
The best one, of course.
Yeah, home court advantage. That's great. All right, so you're out of college at this point.
Out of high school at
out of
that
high
point,
school.
yep.
And then tell me about the college years.
Yeah, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like, I knew I was fairly smart, and like I found different ways to like make money when I was like younger.
Like
But
what?
like, I was like, let's see, I was shoveling driveways. I was buying and reselling Beanie Babies when I was
Okay,
younger.
love
Like,
that,
I saw
yeah.
my sister was in a line one day, and I just saw this massive line. I was like, what's going on here? And so I was like, all right, I understand that. I'd like look up, see which ones were worth values. I would go to some Beanie Baby conventions when I was younger, and people would have to like buy a table or whatever. It's maybe a little scummy thinking back. I knew I was a kid, so I knew I could get away with it. And I just like threw a blanket on the ground. Like I would first scope out all the prices. I'd throw a blanket down, cut every price undercut by like a buck or two. Quick make like 500, 600 bucks, and they'd come over and be like, "You can't do that." I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize that. I'm just a kid." And then I just grab all my stuff, put all my
All your
$100
money.
bills in my pocket, and then go home.
The entrepreneur, very early. All right, so yeah, continue.
But yeah, going into school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like when I was looking at like a 4-year university, I was like looking at the prices, like I don't want to spend all this money. Like I don't even know what I want to do. And so I went to a local community college out there for the first year or two. And during that time, that's when like Halo 1 was kind of finishing up, and then Halo 2 was about to drop, and then things got really big with Halo 2. And so yeah, as that
When you
was
say
coming-
really big, what do you mean?
we started to see, at least the very first year in Halo 2, there was like, all right, now we're seeing like kind of like 10 tournaments this year. I believe it's actually 13 tournaments this year, and like larger prize pool. It really took off in 2006 though. That's when they like MLG announced like that USA TV show. That's where we started like the management contracts and started, getting more interest from sponsors. And so, yeah, 2005 and 2006 is where it like went from like, all right, like I'm paying out of pocket to go to a tournament. In 2004, I was paying out of pocket to go to a tournament, go there, break even, come out a little bit ahead, whatever. Still fun because I want to, flex my Halo skills.
Yeah.
2005 was like, all right, I'm actually making money now. Like I actually stopped working a job in 2004. Like I was working, funny enough, at the post office throughout the summers. Like I was working there, like no exaggeration, like 60 plus hours a week. I see a lot of people say that like on their timeline and stuff. Like I was always working 60 plus hours a week. I was like, were you? Because like I know for sure I was, and I didn't have time for anything else. Like I felt like I was like get done and maybe use my one day off to go to like the laundromat or something like that. Yeah. So in short, went from breaking even to coming out a little bit ahead in like 2000 end of 2004, 2005, and then like 2006 came out, and I was like, all right, this is big. Like I'm putting in a pause. I can always go back to school if I want to later, and I just went full force into Halo.
Tell me a secret strategy that you took as you were developing your player career and your brand. What is one thing that you did that other people hadn't done up until that point, if you can remember, or if there was something? Because it's you never really truly know what people were thinking, what inspired people to do, right? Like obviously you inspired me, and I put that into my brain, and something else came out, and from a strategy perspective. Did you have a moment like that? Like what made you Walshy?
Couple things. So back then, I never turned down any interview. I didn't care about the size or scale of it. I was like, if I get a chance to reach another person and make another fan, I'm gonna take that. Like I would spend like the 15 or 30 minutes to do an interview. I didn't know how large or how small podcasts were, but that was just like a thing. I was like, yep, I'll say yes to everything. Not the same anymore, but like that was one of the things back then. Anytime I met someone in person, I would always make sure I made myself available or gave time to fans there. I always felt like that one-on-one connection was so important.
Mega important.
And I felt like it was something that paid dividends as well. Like for me, it was like, we would not have these tournaments if we didn't have fans or attendees coming out here. And so like, I need them just as much as like they want to meet me. And so I looked at it like as a two-way street. I was like, I was more like, I wouldn't say this as much, but I'm almost like, thank you so much for being here and like making like the life I have right now possible.
Yeah.
And I do view it that way.
Yeah.
And so I think I would always see a lot of other players being like, oh, I don't want to go like sign autographs or talk to other players or whatever. Like, I would say most players out there are really good about it, like anytime they're asked, but like some might shy away from a bit more and might not like that spotlight as much. So I'd say like those are a couple like obvious things. And then I was also reaching out to sponsors.
Your own sales guy.
Yep. Didn't really have like an agent or anything at that time. And so I started talking, I reached out to Red Bull in like 2004 or 2005 when I first reached out to them.
What do you say to somebody like that?
I need to find like this old sponsor letter I wrote because it's like, it showed kind of my, how amateur I was at the time for it. But like, I was like, here's a case study. Here's me wearing this talking timer at this last event, and no one else was using these before. And then the next event, I saw
What's
these.
the talking timer?
In Halo 1, we would use talking timers to call out the power-up time. So it would like count down. It'd basically like call out every 10 seconds, like 50 seconds remaining, 40 seconds remaining, and then count down from like 10 to 1. So I knew exactly when to jump onto Overshield in Halo 1. And so...
Jesus.
So yeah, I showed that. I was like, all right, like people weren't using these before. People weren't using like these Sennheiser headphones before when I was when our team first started using those. And like I was like, I don't have the data to back this up, but like you come to one of these events, you see what we use, people use it. And then I told them like how much I had a respect for like the brand of Red Bull. I saw like, what they had done in other spaces and how they're always like kind of on that emerging like kind of in the forefront of any of those new emerging sports. They helped elevate skateboarding, motocross, all those like kind of sports that I felt like gaming really fit in with. Gaming was like kind of this slight outcast, and it's like, all right, like we have a dedicated hardcore audience, and like we're trying to find our space and where we fit in the mainstream world.
Yeah. What I like about Red Bull is that they made their sort of they made their club really, really exclusive, right? The fact that only a Redwood athlete can wear the hat was like fucking genius, right? It made you want. It made it a club that you wanted to belong to, and you open the door for like. I mean, look at their program now, right? Like I think you, being who you were so early on, sort of like made them consider the fact that this is here. It's big, obviously. It's only gonna get bigger because it's just the world that we live in. And you opened up a lot of doors for a lot of people. And this is why I wanted to do this podcast, because maybe a lot of people don't realize that if the Walshys of the world didn't, crawl for us to be able to, do what we did, none of this would be the way that, like, the chain of effects that happens, like those moments, like just reverberates throughout the course of eternity. Too deep there, sure. It's also super early, so don't think that I'm stoned, right? It's like 9:10. I don't usually take my first.
Yeah, I had to double check which podcast I was getting on before coming on. I was like, I got a cast later today, Hex. I'm not sure if I can do your podcast today.
But yeah, I think one of the main reasons, because I wanted to sort of. You're still going on though. Like this is what, close to 20 years, 15 years, like that you've been doing this.
I mean,
16?
like I think I went to my first Halo tournament in 2002.
Yeah, 20 years.
Right. So yeah.
Yeah, if you've been doing this for 20 years. A lot of people were with you then. Like, where are they now? Right? Like it's the situation that you get into where, and this is sort of a message to everybody that's working in this current climate that we operate in. Like, take advantage of the fact that you had social media. This dude didn't have social media. It hadn't existed, right? Like, everything is laid out for people here to truly take advantage of, like, all the technology and all of the reach that now exists. Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast or doing anything like that? I think you'd be fucking great at something like that.
I appreciate that. I think it's tough. Some parts I'm like not sure where like I fit in, right? Like to do like, like a full on either YouTube series or podcast. I would be willing to explore something like that, but it is interesting back in the day, like you said, where like YouTube for me back then, like I was like, oh, here's a funny viral video, or like I even like created like montages back then, but didn't have like the foresight, or like was just purely ignorant on the front to like upload to my channel and start building my following. I would like, I would work with an editor, or I even edited one of my own and like released it on the forums. Like, oh, here's like this, whatever the equivalent of like Dropbox was back then. And like, someone else uploading their channel. I'm like, and now I see I'm like, oh, they have like million or millions of views, or like,
that could have been all.
Yeah, I could have been like, building up a new audience. It was just like, just oversight on my part, or, just not fully understanding back then. But as far as like starting something now, I don't know. I think like some areas I'm very confident in what I've done in the past. Other areas where I'm like, oh, like I've kind of like taken a step back. There's obviously a lot of great creators and content creators out there now, where I'm not sure I'd want to make sure I'm adding in or doing something different or unique that's like adding to the content creation.
But you are Walshy though. You are unique. You are sort of like the first of your kind for an esport that is going to continue to grow, especially now that that they're offering the support. I mean, obviously you can argue that there's gaps in here. Like, we can complain about the little stuff, but the support is there, right? Like, I think now more than ever, it's like a perfect opportunity for you, because if we boil it all down in the course of history, like, we're still in year 10, right? Of truly, or year 5 of truly understanding what YouTube is, what Twitter is, what all these social media platforms are. We're still on like that very, very like base of what it once or what it will be in the future. So, I would like to see you create something, because I think it's still very early on, especially because Halo's still, as old as it is, with the support now. Like, think about how long it was dormant for, and now it's coming back at full force. There's events, there's cadence throughout the entire year that sort of allows you to plan all of your year around the thing that you love. And I think that you still have like a lot to offer, and I think that you should totally do that.
I would love to, like, outside this podcast, sit with you and kind of like help me understand like what's the best next steps there, because I think also other areas too, like, you and I grew up doing these different avenues, and it's kind of like you had to do everything on your own. Whereas now, like, I see you have such a great team. You're working like Maddie here and so many other people behind the scenes that like you can, allocate your time properly.
Yeah. Well, I think in your case, a lot of people would want to work with you because of who you are, and two, I think that if you sort of develop this, like, look, This is a passion project that we're both going to benefit from, and we can talk about this off. But there's definitely strategies that you can implement like right away, where I think that you can have like some immediate success just because of your name alone. From a collaborative effort, obviously, if I'm walking around saying you're a legend, if Nature's telling you you're a legend, if Formal saying you're a legend, like you have some currency there that you can tap into, and you should tap into personally. Let's take a quick commercial break. Let's say hello to sponsors, and then we'll be right back. Walshy, give me a couple of seconds while I say hello to the sponsors. This week we have Upstart and Fume. Upstart, obviously, thank you so much for continuing to support, and thank you all of you for clicking the link and following up. And I think this one is one of the more meaningful ones because as a young person, I do remember being and feeling lost in some instances with credit card debt, or just not necessarily something that was. And that is the problem, because it's something that's always there, right? So it can be hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? As I just mentioned, a lot of young people sort of feel the need to go down the route of trying to be financially independent, while at the same time getting lost in all the costs that it takes to be a grown adult. And unfortunately, they don't teach these things in high school, so you sort of learn as you go along. But one thing that I do want to recommend is maybe consolidating all of those credit card debts, because you can have 3 credit cards at different rates that you sort of never are able to pay down, where you could get just one single loan at a fixed interest rate that is hopefully lower than all 3 of those, and just make one monthly payment and take care of and wipe out all of that debt, right? Because we've all been there. Seemingly, I don't know where you get hit with unexpected expense bills, and when that happens, it can feel like the world is like crashing down on your shoulders, and it's normal, right? But there's somewhere to go now. Luckily, Upstart is here to help now. Back in the days, I just mentioned, like, there was no information, nothing on how to get ahead, and this is what Upstart is, right? Upstart is Upstart powered personal loans can help you pay down high interest rates. We'll do it again. And this is what Upstart is, right? Upstart powered personal loans can help you pay down high interest debt, all online with simple and easy to understand payment terms. Upstart has helped over 1.8 million customers on their path to financial freedom. Whether it's paying off credit cards, consolidating high interest debt, or funding personal expenses, Upstart can help you get there with one fixed monthly payment to clear and a clear payoff date, right? Like, so there's not going to be any end in sight. There is going to be an end in sight, the silver lining that you're going to work through. And you can check out your rate in minutes for loans between $1,000 to $50,000, and they look at more than just your interest rate. And when they do look at your interest rate, it doesn't affect your interest rate or your credit score because of that one inquiry onto what your credit score is. They look at your history, they look at your expenses, they look at how much you make, they look at where you work. Like, they look at more than just your credit score, because you are more than just your credit score, right? You can check your rate in minutes for loans between $1,000 and $50,000, as I just mentioned. And Upstart knows that you're more than just your credit score. So take a look at it. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait and check your rate today. Upstart.com/eavesdrop. That is upstart.com/EAVESDROP. And don't forget to use our URL. I'll put it in the description down below to make it super easy for you to go and get ahead. Go and at least do the research to see if this is something that applies to you. Loan amounts will be determined based on your credit, income, and certain other information provided by you on your loan application. So again, link in the description. Go to upstart.com/eavesdrop and start getting ahead and start your way towards financial freedom. The second sponsor is Fume. I feel passionate about Fume personally because, smoking, I have personally never smoked a cigarette in my life. And this, I know what it's like. I have family members that have smoked for a very long time. I have friends that have smoked for a very, very, very long time. And it's something that is super difficult to get away if you don't have an easy path or a strategy to, going into it. And let me give you a little bit of information around Fume, right? What makes Fume unique is that Fume is the natural inhaler designed by better, safer, and natural way to quit cigarettes. It's a no smoke, no vape, and no nicotine replacement for the hand to mouth habit of smoking. You replace a habit by starting, right? Fume is made of 100,000%. Holy fuck, 100,000. Replace a habit, right? Fume is made of 100% Canadian maple and uses cores infused with plant oils studied to curb cravings. They have flavors like peppermint to conquer that minty notes that you usually get to simulate menthol cigarettes, and other flavors like lemon berry bliss for a sweeter experience. And all the other flavors are 100% natural, right? No harmful chemicals, no artificial flavors, and absolutely zero nicotine, which is the little bit of the problem here, right? And Fume, to give you a little bit of a backstory on them, Fume was launched in Calgary, Canada, in an effort to build a world of more positive habits. And it has since their launch, they have helped over 50,000 customers around the world get off of cigarettes, right? Their number one mission is to help 1 million people quit smoking by 2025. And if you are a smoker, you can help them achieve that goal and help yourself achieve the goal of getting off the cigarette packs. From start to finish and beyond, not only does Fume help with quitting the process, they also help support beyond quitting with over a dozen cores for relaxation, energy, and more. Also, just so you guys know, it has thousands of positive reviews. Quitting is tough, but Fume can really help. They've got thousands of 5-star reviews from smokers who have tried everything and nothing has worked until they tried Fume. Right now, whether you are a smoker or ex-smoker who still struggles with cravings, Fume is the perfect tool for you. It's time to create positive habits and quit naturally with Fume. And we're here to make it easier. Right now, if you head over to breathefume.com, that is breathefum.com/H3CC, and I'll put a link in the description to make it super easy for you, and use promo code HECZ, H3CC, you are going to save 10% off your entire order. You're going to save on the cigarettes you aren't buying. You're going to save on your initial purchase of Fume. That's 10% off your entire order when you head over to breathefum.com/H3CC and use code promo HECZ. And use promo code HECZ, H3CC, and I'll put it in the description down below so you guys can make that easy. Back to my man Walshy. Shout out to the sponsors for taking care of the podcast. Thank you to everybody who clicks on those links, because they do know, and that's why they do come back. So thank you for that. All right, let's get to the juicy part, right? Like you're this superstar. You're sponsored by Red Bull. You're winning, right? Which is like the toughest thing. You can be popular all you want, but if you're not winning championships, as a pro, there's something that affects you personally, right? So, when did you win your first championship? What was that like? And then tell me the chain of events that led to Final Boss.
Let's see. I ended up winning my second free-for-all I ever attended. So, like I told you about before, I went to that first tournament, took 5th through 8th. Next one I went to, I just dominated and styled, like no exaggeration. So I won the 1v1/free-for-all. In fact, I won the next 4 1v1/free-for-alls I went to. I was fairly well known as like one of the best, if not the best, like free-for-all and 1v1 player back then. I noticed that the team I was playing with, like, we were good, but we just weren't there yet. And for me, like, we had practiced, like, these were all Michigan players. Like, I had teamed up with the top Michigan players, a team called PS. And we were.
What does it stand for?
It's standing for Psycho Soldiers.
Nice.
You weren't gonna let that one slide, so I was like, it's PS. That's the team name. And moving on from our team PS, we were all the old gaming names back then.
Love it.
But yes, so me and the Psycho Soldiers, we were doing fairly well. Like, we went to a tournament or two and took like top four, which was decent, or it was good. But I noticed one. At the time, it was STK, and that was like the ogres, and they had it was like Strange Purple and Cyrax, and they had like they had a couple shifting players. But one thing I remember, he was he pulled like a U in pickleball. Funny enough, is he won one tournament, and then he was like, I'm going out on top, and people are gonna remember me as a legend, and people are like, who's Cyrax now? Yeah. But he could have, maybe
shout out Cyrax wherever you are.
Cyrax, yeah, right. See, we gotta give shout outs to like old legends. But back then, I remember losing to a team that I was like, these 4 people just teamed up this weekend and they beat us, and we'd been practicing together for weekends on end in Michigan. I was like, all right, it reshifted my focus. I was like, all right, overall team strategy here in Halo 1. Sure, I'm sure it's important, but like what matters most is individual skill. you need to have these top guns to win right now. And so I reached out to other top people that are placed in the free for all. I reached out to Killer N and Gintron, and I was like, you guys are crushing the free for all. Funny enough, after I beat Killer N in the finals of one of the tournaments, I went to him. I was like, I want to team with you. He was like, let's talk after. And so I put together the squad, and then every single person.
What did you tell your Michigan buddies?
I told them a little bit after, but I was like, yeah, I want to try a different squad out here. I want to see if we can do well. I mean, I always felt like as long as you,
I said,
are
damn,
upfront,
like it was fucked up. It's not. It was like
no, like
cold blooded.
I've always felt like team changes. It's like this weird. It's not this weird thing. It's something that's gonna happen if you're going to any sort of professional career. And as long as you go into it as professional and respectful as possible, like you aren't trashing that person, as long as you're going in there and just like telling them like, hey, like I want to make this change for this reason, and I'm sorry, like we had a good run, but that's the state of it. They're gonna be, no matter what, someone's gonna be like hurt or mad at you, likely in some fashion, at least short term. But then the long term effect of that will be dependent on how you handled that. So now if you're like ghosting them and like not telling them, and someone else has to tell them, and they find out, like they're gonna be like, what the fuck? Like, I got dropped, and then they also did in this fashion. Like, what, we teamed for these many years. How did that go down? But like I said, I do feel like that's water under the bridge if you handle it properly.
And you did.
Yeah, and I always felt like I handled it properly. I was always up front with any team changes I've had. I was like, hey, dude, like, sorry, we're making this change. I can. A lot of times I wouldn't give as many reasons because like no one wants to hear like, yeah, I think this person has a better shot than you and better teamwork, communications. Like it's just like, hey, like we had a good run, and understand you might not want to talk to me now, but let me know if you ever want to like, grab a beer in the future or whatever.
So the ogres are winning.
Yep, ogres are winning. So I put this team together, and I straight up called it Team Free for All. I was like, I'm grabbing the top free for all players, and grabbed 2 of them. And what I noticed is each of us, we wanted to bring one of our own teammates. So like I was like, oh, I want to get this person on the team. In fact, one of my old Michigan buddies was like, oh, that's fine, but as long as you get me on the team. And I was like, I'll try. And everyone was like, oh, well, I want to bring this person. They're my duo, and they wanted to bring their duo. And I was like, all right, here's the thing: each of us have a duo we want to bring. To make it fair, none of us get to bring our duo, and we have to select a random fourth. And like I felt that was the most fair and objective way. Yeah. And so we started looking across, and we're like, all right, Zyos. And I was like, Zyos I feel is a little abrasive, but I was like, the dude's good. Let's make it happen. Like, I want to win. And so we put that roster together. We ended up winning the next 2 tournaments in a row against Ogres and STK. So this is probably one of the rarities in gaming, like going with a roster that's undefeated across multiple tournaments. So me, Killer N, Gintron, and Zyos never lost a tournament. Undefeated in the history of Halo.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then afterwards, I still always had my sights set. I was like, I think Ogres are the best players out there in Halo 1. And I, after beating them twice, I worked with and talked with Puckett. I was like, I want to team with Ogres.
Wait, where was Puckett in this?
Puckett was still like a Halo 1 friend. Like, we were landing quite a bit. We talk at events, and he was closer with them. And I just wanted him to like field the idea and let him know. And I was like, oh, tell Ogres I'm interested. Like, I didn't really have a close relationship with Ogres or anything back then. And I mentioned, I was like, I want to team with them. I was like, me and I can bring Killer N. Like, I knew they thought Killer N was like really good. And so I was like, me and Killer N will come over. And they were like, all right. They felt like there was an unstoppable squad in Halo 1. And so we all formed a squad up. We named our team Team Domination, and then we did not lose a Halo 1 tournament for the rest of Halo 1.
And who was running these tournaments at the time? Was that MLG already, or was it somebody else?
There was a couple leagues back then, and so it was like there was MLG, AGP, and I think there may have been like a couple like smaller like local things that had like, maybe like $1,000 prize pool here or there or whatever that we'd go to, but it's mainly MLG and AGP.
Got it. All right. So what was your team name when you joined the Ogres? What was the team name?
We had Team Domination, and then we rebranded back to STK or Shoot to Kill in 2005 when Halo 2 came out.
Got it. And at the time, like, what were the big brands back in Halo 2?
As far as team names or brands, there was like a Straight Rippin' back then. There was an iOS. They were arguably like the second best squad, but funny enough, we scrimmed against them so much before the first major tournament that they didn't send a team. They're like, oh, we don't want to go if we're not going to win, but like they probably would have taken second and had like a really good run.
And maybe like gotten long enough to be good, and like at that level of competition Can't hurt.
Yeah, and then if I recall correctly, I believe maybe even EG had entered like early on in 2005. I can't remember 2005 or end of 2005, but either way, like Evil Geniuses started sending on a roster. Who were the other top squads back then? Names escaping me.
Yeah. And at what point does the MLG thing become a thing?
MLG, really started establishing itself, I would say, like in that 2005, where like we knew they had all these tournaments, people were going, we had so many people showing up. So there would be like, kind of this traveling crew that would go to almost every tournament, like I would say a critical mass of like 50 or 100 people and competitors. And then like all the local people would show up for all their regional events. And so it really was a special thing where like you'd start to sell out 100 plus teams or 200 plus teams. Like once we got to 2006 at all these events. And like I said, prize money wasn't super great back then, but you saw something special. You know what I mean? Where you're like, all right, like the crowd's going crazy after certain kills. Like people have been looking forward to this for weeks or months. We're training for it. It was a thing that I was still doing, like I said, community college at that same time. But like, anytime I'm in class there, the only thing I'm thinking about is like Halo. Like I'm like in an accounting class and just like drawing up Wizard. I'm like, all right, maybe push here and we can hide behind this ramp and run a flag this route and block spawns here.
Yeah.
And so it was like kind of like on the precipice of being something great. And 2006 was really the year that it took off. But like 2005 was just still like that special time where you had we started to build all these friendships and rivalries with these other top players at these events. And like I said, we were branded as Shoot to Kill back then, and we took first at pretty much every single event except for maybe like one or two. I think we ended up losing one Team Slayer event in 2005, if I recall correctly. It was like MLG Philly 2005, and it had like a couple obscure maps and stuff, and we got beat there.
Damn. When at what point did MLG start to sort of like have the carbons, the final bosses, the instincts, and all that stuff?
2006. That's where they started that kind of like franchising model. Wanted you to sign there directly. Like it was, it was like a blessing and a curse. Like, sometimes when you get some of more of that bureaucracy involved, there are definitely downsides to it. And then, there was definitely, there's pros and cons there.
Was there any resistance from the players saying like this is wrong, we shouldn't do this?
I remember funny enough, like me and the STK crew were kind of like, all right, like this contract, on the surface sounds good, but it's not great. And like even I don't want to dig up too much old drama or anything like that, but like I remember even having something back then where like I was like, well, what happens if we don't want to sign the contract? And they're like, well, you don't got to be on the TV show. And I was like, damn.
So it was because of the TV show that this was...
part of that, but I think like that was kind of like, just kind of their kind of way of saying like, we need to get this going, like get all on the same page here.
Yeah.
It like blew up to a level I didn't really imagine. Like funny enough, even though we were like filming all these episodes and these tournaments, I didn't believe that like the TV show was really happening until like we saw it live on like a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Like you and I have seen
so they
so
didn't
many
tell you no
deals
schedules. They didn't get a schedule release like,
they did, but like I was like I've seen enough things fall through in gaming at this point, even in like my short few years where I'm like, oh man, this org's gonna sponsor us, or we're gonna get like this watch sponsor, we're gonna get this, and just like things always fell through in gaming. And I just realized I started to get to the spot where like, all right, well, until something's done, like don't get excited about it. Like it's fine to entertain ideas and talk through sponsors and talk through possibilities, but until I see a done deal thing, don't believe it.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my mindset with the TV show, because it was such a big thing. It would have been like so heartbreaking if it didn't happen for some reason. But like, I just remember like watching it on like a Saturday morning. I was like, what the hell? Like I'm on TV. Let's go.
Yeah. That was me feeding Olivia like her spaghetti and shit, watching Walshy and the boys. So, all right. So MLG, because of the TV show, sort of created. Who came up with these names? Was that on the MLG side in marketing?
The players. Like, I mean, Carbon also was a team name prior to that.
Okay.
So that was one that I had missed earlier. But like Final Boss, like Sane came up with that team name. And yeah, we worked with like MLG artists to like come up with like the logo. And I mean, no disrespect to Optic, but I do think that like Final Boss and that logo is the greatest gaming org name in history.
I think, yeah, yes. I've always said it. Everyone has always said it. It's like unanimous, sort of a unanimous fact that Final Boss is the best console. Well, not even just console, just esports name that has ever been. And I think it is because some of the similarities with Optic. It was like the genesis of a superstar team that everybody can rally behind because of the characters that sort of belong to that little universe. Again, I drew a lot of inspiration from all of that. In 2006, that's when Optic sort of became was founded, and I didn't join until like end of 2006, I think. But yeah, it's Final Boss is that you got to play for one of the most legendary names
and we built it up. You know what I mean? Like
I was gonna say there. Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Ultimately, like if we didn't have that sort of dominating fashion, like that name would have been meaningless. Yeah. But like the fact that we just went in for years on years and just crushed and like just instilled fear on all our opponents and just won over and over again. It's just like. It was something so special.
Yeah, that was to me again as a young Hex looking at what that was. In 2010 was the first time that I ever attended an MLG event. It was the first time that Optic ever attended an MLG event, and I remember every aspect of it. From mostly because we have. Video of it somewhere. I can't find it, but we have video of all of these instances in which you sort of start to see my brain sort of working and trying to figure out how we become impactful in this new thing. And I remember showing up. It was Nadeshot, Flawless, Vengeance, and Merc. And to me, seeing all the people that I was watching on YouTube was like the fucking weirdest shit ever, right? And a couple of people that were watching me, like I think I signed my first autograph ever at that in 2010.
It's weird the very first time. You're just like, whoa, what's going on? Like I remember doing it like at a Halo 1 event and just being like, I remember telling like someone was like, that person just asked for my autograph. Like I don't know.
Yeah, Did you play it cool?
I was like, yeah, sure. And
I played it super cool. I was like, yeah, man, damn. Yeah.
This is before like a show or like like I felt like Halo 1 didn't really even have like that much of a presence. Like at this point, it's more like kind of like local land legend style thing. Yeah. And so it was a little surreal to me, but I was like, all right, like this is getting big.
Yeah, I'd already been signing like black books by that time, right? Like from graffiti. I made a name for myself in graffiti, which is why I think it made it easier for me to like sort of be okay with having like a certain level of popularity. Anyway, we get in there and it smells like fucking gamers, right? Like it's just, I'm like, oh my God. And at the time, I think it was Old Spice that was handing out like deodorants.
I was sponsored by Old Spice.
Were you? Yeah. shout out to Old Spice. Still to this day, I use Old Spice.
And Old Spice swagger?
No, I use Fiji.
Fiji. Okay.
Old Spice Fiji. It has to be the chalk. It can't be the liquid. If I do the liquid, my hairs will get into like little balls, and I'd have to like pick them off, and I'm like but I don't know. I mean, it may be because of that I use Old Spice as like my deodorant of choice.
It has to be for mine too. Like it's so funny. My fiance, she's like, "Oh, you smell nice." I'm just like, "Don't make me say it." I'm just like,
yes.
She's like, "Stop it! Don't do that."
Oh man! So I get there and Call of Duty doesn't have anything, right? It's just like a little fucking side station, and I hear roars, and I'm like, "What the fuck is going on over there?" So I start making my way over with my little handheld camera, and there's this like bleachers, sort of this cube bleacher, not cube, round bleachers surrounded in a Coliseum-esque sort of
like a half octagon almost.
Yeah, you remember obviously you're on main stage, and I remember, I don't know if you were teaming with Pistola at the time.
I did not team with Pistola. So
ever?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Ever.
Okay,
so you were on the other side then. And Pistola was an Instinct? Was Pistola an Instinct?
Let's see. Pistola was on Instinct, or maybe on like a Final Boss at that point.
Yeah. So you weren't together on Final Boss.
No. I wish I teamed with Ola at some point.
Yeah. My memories, as good as it is still a little bit that. But I remember just like sitting there, and I'm watching from the outside, like I'm looking through people's feet into the main stage, and I just see all these people getting fucking hype when you come out. When Pistola came out, like the crowd really had this like explosion, like a little bit louder, just a tiny little bit louder of that. And I'm like,
a lot louder. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
And I'm like, what? Like, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I'm looking at this dude, right? Like this dude that's like unassuming, short, like nothing that you would think that would demand this sort of like gravitas. And I'm like, fuck this. I fucking go around, I sit down and I just watch, and I'm just, this is the first time I ever watched like Halo in person and competitive, and I was just like, immediately I'm like, this is like this is it. Like what we're seeing right now is gonna be 100 times bigger, and every single one of these people is like this character or this personality of cartoon characters that is going to fight against these. And from that moment on, everything that I saw was all video games. When I went to a Bulls game, I would be like, oh my God, this is like fucking, God's Nightmare from fucking Call of Duty, and this like God's Trigger Finger, that's Covenant. And I'm going through all of these names that I know in my head and sort of like putting esports into this basketball game. Right. And I'm like, this is what this thing's going to be. And sure enough, like obviously we fast forward some time and this happens. The entrepreneur in you, as you were describing earlier, what did that help in your, when you became a brand and people were, people were following you for you, what made you create Kineto instead of Final Boss Apparel?
Yeah, a couple things. One, started Kineto before we even started doing like that franchising.
Mm-hmm.
And then also I just noticed as an opportunity, had a high school friend that was already doing stuff in the clothing industry. And I was like, all right, like every other vertical out there has some sort of supporting clothing line, and generally the ones that like do something that is cool or impactful to the industry, or some that are just even there first, are the ones that have really succeeded. Yeah. And so I kind of looked at it, I was like, all right, I want this to be a brand that's like comfortable, cool clothes you can sit around and game in, and then if you go out like your friends, your girlfriend, or go hang out somewhere, like they're cool to wear too. Yeah. And so that was kind of like the vision for it. We succeeded in some ways for it, then other ways, honestly, just kind of like a learning experience or misexecuted. Like I don't think that even like the name itself didn't wasn't phonetic. It should have been a much more understandable name. We didn't do anything as impactful in the gaming industry. Like when you look at something like, let's say Hurley, like, maybe helped make new bindings for skateboards, or like Volcom or Quicksilver helping define how different surfboards should be created. So we didn't do as much on the direct impact on gaming, like helping develop a new controller or headset. So that would have been the bigger way. And then I also didn't have the ideal business partner style setup. Yeah. In short, embezzlement happened, and shit happens.
What do you mean embezzlement happened?
My old business partner embezzled a lot of money and filed for bankruptcy. And
oh man,
so even besides that, like I could just try to look at that and be like, that's why we failed. It wasn't the only reason why we failed. Yeah. Like there were so many other things that like we didn't do correct.
Yeah, but how could you, right? Like this isn't something that's taught in school. This isn't something that you could have researched on YouTube at the time, or researched like the access wasn't there, which is why I implore everybody that watches this podcast to just give yourself a shot and just do the research and give it a shot. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, if you don't, you're always going to regret that you didn't. And if you did and you failed, it's like at least you tried. You know what I mean?
And you can try for like very reasonable investments now. Like back then, I had to put a 6-figure amount into Kineto and get that going. Whereas now, like you can start up something and just order a few dozen T-shirts on an online site, get them printed, and like not have to do like you don't have to make a massive margin on your first sales as you're testing out a new idea. Yeah, I would definitely recommend people to read something like The Lean Startup. As they're looking to start a new business. It's like, oh wow, like I could start an app, or I could start a business in that fashion, and you don't have to like build the scaler off the bat, because as you're figuring out the product or the idea, like you need to solve that first. That's the first and foremost important piece. Yeah. Did you hear my stomach? Could you hear it? I heard a little growl. I was gonna let it slide, but
I'm proud of my stomach. No, I'm not. It needs to calm down. It's getting too big. Okay, so obviously, you're learning from that. Have you, since then, have you thought about like side businesses that you'd want to do? Again, for me, man, like I as a fan, right, I'd like to see more of you on stuff, just to hear your thoughts about things. And look, at the end of the day, it's rightfully yours, man. Like you paved the Halo pavement. You should take your piece of that pie as it grows into something that will be big, right? I don't think that Halo is going anywhere. I mean, it's survived a bunch of shit, right? It survived a bunch of not management, but sort of mismanagement of what the competitive side of Halo is, and obviously the franchise is going to think what the franchise is going to be, but on the sports side of it, like you put it on the map, right? Or you helped put it on the map. So and again, if the last 5 years didn't kill it, and we're still coming back, and I'm still showing up, and we as Optic love it.
So many big brands are involved. You know what I mean? Like with all the partner teams, like they're some of the biggest and best esport orgs in the world.
That's right. So so to me, it's like it only makes sense that you grab your part, man. It would make me sad if you don't take your part.
I appreciate that, and I think I'm going to use this as motivation to try to figure out exactly what that piece is, because I have been trying to do some other stuff behind the scenes on esports a bit more, but like I do need to get back into some content creation, some more regular streaming. I have been streaming a little bit here and there on Twitch, since the pandemic.
Yeah, look, if I'm going out of my way to make sure that you are on my podcast, man, I can guarantee you that there are people like me who were fans then that are going to continue to be fans now of what your brain has to offer to this industry. Did we miss anything, man? Because I know you got stuff to do, so like, I don't want to take too much of it. And I don't think that you should complicate the things that you want to do, right? Like I don't think that there's a thing that would fit the Walshy, right? Like Walshy is Walshy, and whether it's reacting, whether it's playing, whether it's coaching, whether it's analyzing, whether it's doing a podcast, as I just mentioned, I think that there's a lot that you still have to offer to this industry. And you being behind, you're in front of the camera now, right? Obviously, but you being doing stuff behind closed doors, like I don't think that's the world that Walshy should live in. And who the fuck am I, right? Like you gotta do what you're gonna do. Just as a fan and as an outsider's perspective, like you need to be out front, and I mean like way out front.
No, I appreciate that. I'll take that to heart.
Yeah, please do. I can sit here and talk to you and fanboy for longer than this. I hope this isn't the last time that you come on. What I want to do is I want to do the podcast with everybody that, like, I want to do, Ogre 2, Ogre 1, both of them together would be perfect. Launchbox and Roy, obviously those two, but at some point I would like to have like the entire Final Boss team, or maybe you can do that. That's what you should do. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna take that. You should take it, and then that should be the first one, and then after that we can make something happen. But I'm excited that you're still around. I'm excited that you're still passionate about the game that you helped build. And anything that you need from me to return the favor that you did for me so long ago, I would love to.
No, I would, like I said, love to just sit and chat one time, get your perspective on what I should do for next steps if I want to get back into some content.
Yeah.
And just hang out anytime you're in town.
Brother, thank you so much, man. Appreciate you. Truly an honor. All of his information is going to be in the description down below. Please make sure to go down there and follow him because you want to be notified when he goes on his journey as a content creator going forward if he chooses to. Anyway, thank you so much for the sponsors again, and we'll see you guys next time on episode 132 with I don't know who. We'll see you guys. Bye. Thanks, brother.
Dude, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course.